Hello Year 1. This week I've got a musical story for you all to enjoy, with a task at the end when you have finished listening to it. This is the story of The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen, and whilst I read it to you, I'm going to play a famous piece of music with it called The Lark Ascending. I hope you enjoy this fun story, everyone. Listen carefully, and I will ask you to complete a small challenge at the end of it. Okay, here we go.
Summer had come to the farm. Bumblebees buzzed in and out of the hedgerows, and buttercups turned up their merry yellow faces. Out in the fields, rows of golden wheat swayed and rippled in the breeze. The cows grazed lazily in the orchard, strolling past trees bent low with apples and sticky, sweet plums. In a sleepy corner of the farm, tucked away behind an old barn, there was a dandelion patch. The patch was sheltered from the wind by a leafy bush. A cosy nest was tucked away there, right in the middle, and a plump mother duck sat on the nest, waiting for her eggs to hatch. How much longer will it be, she asked herself for the 100th time already that morning. The mother duck had sat on the nest for weeks. She had tried hard to be patient, but it wasn't easy sitting by herself for hours on end. Whenever the other ducks waddled down to the river, she quacked at them and waggled her tail feathers. Sometimes the passers-by could be persuaded to stop for a word or two, but they were soon on their way. No duck wanted to waste the day gossiping in a dandelion patch when they could be paddling down the river instead. Today, however, the mother duck was in luck. Her wait was finally over. The eggs were ready to hatch. Tap, tap, tap. The mother duck jumped up from her nest and pushed at the straw with her beak. 6 creamy white eggs began to wobble and shake. Tap, tap, tap. "Come over here, quick," called the mother duck, spotting 3 friends waddling down for their morning swim. "My babies are coming." The ducks gathered round the nest. One by one, the eggs began to crack and split. Then out popped a duckling with fuzzy yellow feathers. "Ah," cooed the ducks, "what a gorgeous little fellow he is." With that, another duckling appeared, and then another, and another. Soon the mother duck had 6 babies to call her own. The ducklings tumbled out of their shells, cheeping sweetly and blinking up at the daylight. "A beautiful brood," declared the other ducks, nodding their heads in approval. The mother duck puffed her feathers out in pride. The little chicks were even more adorable than she'd imagined they'd be. Each one was the colour of sunshine, with bright eyes and tiny pink feet. "Dear little ducklings," said the mother duck, "are you all here?" She nudged the hay around the nest. One last egg peeped out of the straw. It was the biggest of the lot. "Still not hatched," she quacked. "How much longer are you going to be? There's nothing else for it, I suppose. I'll have to sit back down and keep waiting." The mother duck couldn't help but feel cross as she watched the other chicks pecking and playing. When would this last one hatch? She couldn't wait to take her brood up to the farmyard to show them off to the other animals. How they would cluck when they saw their little yellow feathers and pretty little feet. An old white duck wandered up, then tapped the last egg with her beak. "That's no duckling you've got there," said the white duck. The mother duck's feathers started to ruffle, but the visitor carried on. "That's a turkey egg," she announced. "Mark my words, I was taken in once just like you. I turned my back for 5 minutes and a great thing like that rolled into the nest. Ugh! It hatched into the ugliest turkey you've ever seen." "But that can't be," protested the mother duck. "I've been sat here for weeks." The white duck sniffed. "That's as may be. All I'll say is that I know a turkey egg when I see it. Push it out and get on with looking after the rest of you chicks." The other visitors hooted and quacked their agreement, putting the mother duck into a dreadful fluster. She peered down at the last egg. It looked so lonely, lying there all by itself. Who knew what would become of it if she upped and left? "I won't leave it," she decided, settling back down on her nest. "I've waited this long. A few more days will make no difference." Another day and another night passed. The mother duck waited and waited for the last egg to hatch. Tap, tap, tap. The mother duck tipped her head to one side. At last, a crack zigzagged down the egg. It suddenly split in half, sending a duckling tumbling out into the nest. The mother duck carefully looked up and down. The duckling blinked at its mother. He wasn't tiny, yellow or cute. He was big and grey with a funny black beak. "Oh dear," she frowned. "You're very odd, aren't you? You must have been stuck in that egg for too long. What dowdy feathers, and what enormous feet." The mother duck's friends came up to meet the new arrival. "Peep, peep," said the duckling, as sweetly as he could. "Are you sure it's not a turkey chick instead?" laughed the old white duck that had visited the day before. The haughty brown duck from a nearby nest began to chuckle to herself. "I do declare," she said loudly, "that he's the ugliest thing I've ever seen." "What a strange creature," said a drake, nudging the baby with his beak. "He doesn't look like a duckling at all." The mother duck wouldn't listen to another word. She tucked the newborn under her wing, then shooed the visitors away. "Leave him alone," she quacked. "How can a baby be ugly? He's not good looking yet, but I dare say he'll grow handsome. Just you wait." The other ducks waddled off, hooting and laughing as they went. The mother duck sighed. 6 perfect yellow babies, and now this! Soon the whole farmyard would be talking about her poor ugly duckling. What was she to do? The mother duck waited for the sun to climb up above the barn roof. When the afternoon breeze felt warm on her feathers, she led her little family down to the riverbank. 6 yellow chicks bounced along behind her in a neat line. The last grey duckling tagged along at the back, stumbling through the grass and tripping over its big webbed feet. The mother duck's heart fluttered at the thought of leading her brood. At the river she slid elegantly into the water. "Follow me, children," she said. "Do what I do." Plop, plop, plop. The 6 little chicks jumped in. The babies squealed and cheeped with delight when they felt the cool water tickling their tummies. Without even thinking, they pushed their heads up, kicked their legs and paddled. Plop! The ugly duckling jumped in too. To the mother duck's delight, he began to paddle along just as beautifully as his siblings. "That's my boy," she told herself proudly. "What turkey can swim like that? Look at his straight neck and those strong legs. He's a fine little swimmer." The mother duck was so pleased she resolved to forget about the other silly ducks. Her grey duckling was a bit large and rather plain, but she was certain that this was just because he had stayed in his egg too long. A few days of sunshine on his feathers was all he needed to make him just as handsome as the rest. "This way, duckling," she called, jumping back onto the riverbank. Now that she was confident that her youngest couldn't be a turkey, the mother duck decided to take the chicks up to the farmyard. She was ready to show them off to the other animals. "And what do we have here?" asked the old horse, ambling over as soon as he spotted the mother duck waddling into the farmyard. He counted 6 cheeping chicks behind her, followed by a funny little creature with a dull black beak. The cows, the goats and the hens all rushed over to get a better look. The mother duck puffed her chest out. "These are my new arrivals," she said loudly. The horse whinnied in surprise. The chicks were delighted, of course, but what was this drab grey bird following at the end of the line? He asked the little creature to step forward. "Head up straight, turn your toes out," whispered the mother duck, nudging the grey duckling forward with her beak. The grey duckling gulped nervously. He waddled clumsily to the front, then peered up at the farm animals. "Hello," he said in a shy voice. "Oh my," squawked the hen, "what kind of bird is that? He hasn't hatched at all well. If only you could put him back in his egg. How disappointed I'd be if I had a chick like that." The mother duckling glared at the hen. "He's just a little different, that's all," she retorted angrily. "You should see how well he swims." But everyone had stopped listening to the mother duck. The farm animals were too busy laughing and shouting. "He's twice the size he ought to be," neighed the horse. "And so ugly," mooed the cow. "He certainly doesn't belong here," bleated the goat, pointing his horns at the ugly duckling. "Just give him time," insisted the mother duck, shooing her brood back towards the nest. "He'll grow into a handsome drake one day." But that just made the farm animals hoot even louder than before. From that moment on, the ugly duckling was sad and lonely. Every time he strayed into the farmyard, the animals turned their backs on him. On some days, children wandered over to feed the ducks. They cooed and squealed when they spotted the 6 fluffy chicks, but they wouldn't throw any food to the grey bird with the horrible black feet. When the ducklings went to the river, the 6 pretty chicks paddled off in a line, leaving the ugly duckling to swim all by himself. "What am I to do with you?" muttered the mother duck, looking him sadly up and down. "You've caused me nothing but trouble ever since you hatched." The ugly duckling's eyes welled up with tears. Even his own mother didn't seem to want him any more. "I should just swim away," he decided. "They'd be better off without me." The poor ugly duckling paddled downstream. As he swam, all he could see was his gloomy reflection in the water, a mass of drab grey feathers and a gawky black beak. Far behind him, the mother duck led her chicks out of the water, not even noticing that her youngest had simply disappeared. "This way, children," she called. "Follow me." The ugly duckling kicked his legs as hard as he could, pressing on even faster. Soon the barn and the dandelion patch were far behind him. The river turned into a meandering stream weaving in and out of the meadows. After a while the sun began to set. The ugly duckling flew up out of the stream, hoping to seek out shelter and some company. The birds living in the trees and the hedgerows darted away the very instant the stranger came near. Rabbits hopped back into their burrows, and chattering squirrels pointed down rudely from their branches. Even the wild ducks eyed him suspiciously. "What a strange thing you are," they quacked, shrinking back from the ugly duckling. "You can't mix with us, do you understand?" The ugly duckling nodded miserably. He tucked himself in amongst a pile of leaves and hid until daybreak. Early next morning the ugly duckling got on his way. He waddled through the forest until he reached a glassy lake surrounded by bulrushes. A flock of geese were diving for grubs and worms. "They're huge," the ugly duckling whispered to himself. The geese honked noisily as they ate. The ugly duckling summoned up all of his courage, then jumped down to the edge of the lake. "Hello there," he called out bravely. "Have you seen any ducklings that look like me?" A white goose shook his head in surprise, spraying water everywhere. "Like you," he spluttered, turning to his friends. "Why, you're the strangest looking duckling I've ever seen." The other geese hooted at the thought. Their answer was clear. The ugly duckling certainly didn't belong with them. The ugly duckling bowed his head sadly and left the lake. He stumbled on through marshlands and meadow, up steep hills and down winding valley paths. Walking was difficult and slow. The ugly duckling was still just a chick, even if he wasn't fluffy and cute. "It's getting cold," sighed the ugly duckling, watching the trees arch and bend in the breeze. Clouds began to swirl overhead, the sky turned slate grey, and rain began to fall. The little bird was buffeted left and right, but he kept on going until it got late. Just as he was about to faint with tiredness, the ugly duckling spotted an old cottage looming out of the shadows. It had holes in the roof and a creaky wooden door that swung from a rusted hinge. The garden hadn't been tended for years, and weeds sprouted across the path. Despite this, a light shone from the window. "The storm is almost here," he whispered to himself. "I'll have to take my chances." The ugly duckling rushed forward, pushing his head down against the driving rain. He waddled up the garden path, jumping in and out of the puddles. When a gust of wind blew the cottage door open a crack, the ugly duckling crept inside. The cottage only had one room. There were no fusses or frills, but it was dry and warm enough. An old woman was sitting in front of the fire, dozing in her rocking chair. There was a fine grey cat curled up on her lap. In the corner there was a nest of hay with a plump hen perched on top. The ugly duckling hid under the table so that no one would see him. "How's my beautiful chickie?" asked the woman, waking herself up to stoke the fire. The hen lifted herself grandly off her nest. There underneath was a newly laid speckled egg. The woman picked it up, patted the hen, and gave the cat a kiss for good measure. "Well done," she beamed. "What a lucky woman I am. Fresh eggs every day from my prize hen and a handsome cat for company. I couldn't wish for anything more." The cat purred contentedly and stretched his paws out so his mistress could stroke him, arching his back as she brushed his fur backwards and forwards. "What a generous lady," marvelled the ugly duckling. "I wonder what she will think of me." The poor little bird leant back against the table leg. He was so weary he dropped off to sleep instantly, safe at last from the wind and the rain. "And who might you be?" bellowed a voice. The ugly duckling's eyes sprang open. Daylight streamed into the cottage. The old woman, the cat and the hen were all squeezed under the table, looking him up and down. The ugly duckling cleared his throat and flapped to his feet. "Hello," he said as politely as he could. "I am a duckling." The cat snorted. The hen squawked. There was no room for strangers in their house. Said the old woman, thinking for a moment. She fancied the idea of having duck eggs as well as chicken eggs for breakfast every day. Let's give the duckling a try," she said to the cat and the hen. "If it can lay me lots of eggs, it can stay." The ugly duckling gasped in surprise. It was a relief to have somewhere to shelter, but he knew he could not last for long. He was a drake, a male duck, and drakes do not lay eggs. "Can you lay eggs that are as big and round as mine?" demanded the hen one afternoon, fluffing up her feathers. "No," sighed the ugly duckling, "I cannot." "Can you purr and arch your back?" hissed the cat, switching his tail left and right. "No," sighed the ugly duckling, "I cannot." There was nothing more to say. The cat and the hen watched as the ugly duckling waddled back outside to face the big, wide world all by himself. The ugly duckling roamed on and on, but now there was a slight chill in the air. Autumn was coming. Soon there would be swirls of russet and gold as the leaves changed colour, then let go of their branches. The ugly duckling called out to the birds and the animals that he passed, but nobody wanted to share their nest with the dowdy grey chick. At last the ugly duckling stumbled across a big round pond tucked away in the middle of a lonely wood. It was quiet here, apart from the frogs and the fishes. The duckling shivered, then jumped into the water. "Nobody wants me," he sniffed sadly. "I'll just have to hide here until the winter has passed." It was a lonely life for a young duckling. Every day he paddled around the pond, searching for grubs and pondweed to nibble. Whenever another creature came down to the water, he rushed into the reeds and hid himself away from view. Sometimes a frog would hop past and spy him first, then ribbit loudly in surprise. "What an odd-looking duckling," it would croak. "Wait till I tell my friends." As he scrambled to cover himself with reeds, the ugly duckling would feel more and more ashamed. He shivered at the thought of the other animals laughing at him. As the days grew colder, the ugly duckling stayed hidden in the reeds more and more. He sat in a clump of leaves, gazing up at the wide open sky above him. One evening, just as the sun was setting, a flock of gleaming white birds flew overhead. The ugly duckling gasped at their beauty. Each bird had an elegant long neck, magnificent wings and feathers the colour of snow. They cried out as they flew, winging their way to spend the winter in warmer lands. Without thinking, the ugly duckling cried back, a strange, shrill shriek that cut through the icy air. "They're the kings of the sky," declared the ugly duckling. Craning his head, he watched intently till every last bird had disappeared over the horizon. "What beauty," gasped the ugly duckling. "If only I could look like them." The chick lifted up a gawky grey wing, then sighed at his silliness. How could something so ugly dare to dream such an impossible dream? It was a cold and miserable winter. The ugly duckling struggled to find food to eat in his lonely home. The pond froze over and the sky turned ashen and white. Then one day a lark began to sing a more hopeful tune. Spring was returning to the countryside. The ugly duckling peered timidly out of the reeds. The pond was thawed now, and yellow irises opened their petals to the sun. Suddenly a graceful swan glided through the water, straight past the ugly duckling's hiding place. "What are you doing there?" asked the swan, swimming closer. The ugly duckling pulled his head back into the reeds. The swan was sure to be disgusted by the sight of such a drab, clumsy creature. "I'm sorry to offend you," he said sadly. "I'll get on my way." The swan glided right up to the ugly duckling. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "Come on, the rest of us are waiting." With that, 3 more noble white swans emerged from the other side of the pond. They curled their white wing feathers up behind them so delicately it made the ugly duckling hang his head to be in the presence of such beauty. He stared down into the pond, then cried out in amazement. There in the water was the reflection of a beautiful white swan, looking straight back up at him. "Can that really be me?" he stuttered. The other swans gathered around their new friend. "Of course it is," they replied, patting him gently with their beaks. "You are the youngest and most handsome of us all." The ugly duckling felt tears of joy spring to his eyes. He arched his slender neck and set out across the water. The breeze felt warm as it ruffled through his feathers. The beautiful swan had never dreamt of such happiness when he was the ugly duckling. He flapped his wings and rose up into the air with the other swans, ready to start a new and better life.
Okay, there we are, everyone. The story of the Ugly Duckling, with some beautiful music there for you as well, called The Lark Ascending. I hope you enjoyed listening to both of those. Now, what I want you to do is to create a picture of the Ugly Duckling for me on a piece of paper. Now, you can draw this with pencil if you like, or you can colour it in. You can do it in any way you like, but I'd like you to make a picture of the Ugly Duckling, and then I'd like you to write some words about the Ugly Duckling around the edge of your picture. So you can just do some short words. You might write ugly or cute or small or fluffy. Or you can put a few words together like big beak or wide feet. And if you really want to try hard, you can write me a sentence at the bottom all about the ugly duckling. So you might write, "The ugly duckling had grey feathers," or something like that. Then when you have finished your picture with your words, you can take a photo of your work and send it to me. Okay, hope you enjoy that challenge, everyone. I can't wait to see all your work. Do take care. Bye.